to Healing for the Soul podcast, with this being season number 4, episode number 9. I am your host, Robin Stoltman. Today I have my guest, Lynn-dee Rensburg, who is a sex coach, on the show talking about tantric sex. And before we get started, remember, every week I feature different guests to help you become the best version of yourself through different methods you may not have heard of or thought of. So let's get started. Thank you so much, Lynn-dee, for being here. I really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure, and thank you very much for inviting me to your show.
Well, what is your specialty and who do you like to work with?
Specialty. Well, I would say my specialty is, because I delved in my own sexuality, is females, but I'm attracting a lot of males. So I do them as well. Well, I don't mean do them. I mean I assist them with their sexual interactions, problems. I don't want to say problems because that's not. It's not actually a problem. It's actually just something we're not being taught about sex at all. So that's.
And I would agree with you, because we're not taught a lot of things about sex in general, other than because we already know, like, we have like the innate just like how to do it, but we don't really talk about it. And I deal with that too, because I've had male clients myself for the hypnosis and using that for trauma that they've been through or different issues with like impotency and that, like I said, for the work that I do. So that is a completely understandable why more men would come to a sex therapist or a sex coach for the help.
And then what you just said there, procreation. We are taught, we think sex is only for procreation, and that makes a massive conflict in your bedroom if you're not doing it just to get a child. Then the whole dynamic. True. and then obviously the porn industry telling us, I'm not shaming the porn industry, but they tell us that it's all male orientated and get to the orgasm. So that causes a lot of conflict between where the female is left, where and not even that, arousal for a man is 6 or 4 minutes. It's easy to get there. Well, where a woman is like a slow oven.
True.
And that's where the curiosity and the play needs to happen, and where compassion and safety needs to play a very huge part in our sexuality. And we're not taught this. So that's how we have this pandemic of fake orgasms, because we're trying to look like that porn stars.
Or you don't get any. I've ran into a few people who have said that they've never had one, and I'm like, how is that not possible? But it makes sense though, because we're, like you said, for the porn star type, and it's like, yeah, that's all for show. Literally, they've had to learn how to act it all out.
And we don't even know what types of orgasms there is, and it's really a show that you think in your mind. Your mind is powerful. Don't get me wrong.
It is true.
But your body as well.
That's true, and that's I'm glad that you said that, because I know, like, one of the things that I've listened to was when Dr. Joe Dispenza, who also went to the same college as me, he said in a YouTube video about how our minds are like puppies, because you have to train your mind to control your body, not the other way around. So that would make sense with the work that you do. So who or what inspired you to do the work that you do with the tantric sex? And what is the tantric sex?
Okay, so to inspire, it was myself. I inspired myself. My misery for sex inspired me, because I couldn't get the whole routine thing. Let's say regular sex. Let's claim it at that, just for the sake of dividing it.
Terminology, yeah.
Yeah, terminology, yeah. So I couldn't understand the whole concept about that. So firstly, that inspired me. My own journey inspired me, and then I did go look at different Western ways to assist me. But what I couldn't understand is they would give me numbing cream to just put it on my vagina or vulva. It's actually called a vulva.
True.
So yeah, and a lot of people don't even know that there's a difference. But okay, getting into the vagina vulva. So I couldn't understand. Okay, now I numb myself and then I just carry on. What, my mind is not understanding this. So yeah, so my search for more than that led me to Tantra. And Tantra, I don't know really know how you say it. Let's say it for the sake like this. Maybe the gurus will smack me against my head how I say it. Okay, but we are our own gurus that we need to understand
We
that as
are.
well. So in terms of that, is Tantra is coming to wholeness. It's making all aspects. It's actually if you look it up on Google, because everything is on Google these days,
True.
it says woven together. So what that means is not it's not just I'm a goody two shoes lady, because we have a lot of sub personalities and we have a lot of stuff that we don't even say that we are. So we have an erotic side to us, like a sexual side to us, and we just kind of put that into the brush and it's like, oh no, we don't have that. But we have all these aspects to us, and that is, in a nutshell, everything like that. All the dark sides we don't want to face, and the nice side, like nice positive affirmations, being nice angel, that we want to be. But all the other places that we don't want to be, those are all in your sexuality. That's all a part of your human experience. So that is understanding that concept and bringing it in to wholeness, to be your fully sexual self. So that's what Tantra means.
That makes it a lot more powerful. I'm just like trying to think of like for my own self, like I know like there's different parts of the brain, there's different parts of the body.
Totally.
And so like if I understand correctly, the Tantra sex is putting all of that together. It's not just like the physical aspect of doing things with your partner. It's more a whole body, full body experience. It's not just to
Yeah, so
procreate
Tantra,
and
yeah, yes. So Tantra is originally not made for sex as a couple. It's made to liberate individuals. And then later stages, the who knows who brought it in and made it to make a couple grow individually. But it takes individual practices on your own at the end of the day before you can incorporate it into sexual activities. Reason being, because you need to understand yourself and understand what's happening. And to understand yourself, it means somewhere you got a signal that sexuality, or say for instance, did you know, as little as we are in our mom's womb, we already masturbate. We can already do that, right? So it's
I did
very
not know that part. That's interesting. I know as
so
a
it's
child, I know like they can.
but it's very innocent. Remember, we don't have
Mhm.
a cortex yet. It's slightly
Yes, we don't have the filters yet.
yeah, yeah. So it's the emotion and the feeling. So we all in our feeling
Mhm.
states. So what happens, and later we get birthed, and then you just play. You're just curious. They always make
Yeah, true.
they always make a joke in our culture that if you haven't humped your nephew or cousin because you're children, you're just playing just to know what's going on. But that's why it's so important to educate your child from the get-go in a positive way, so it doesn't get shamed,
True.
because there's a lot of shame and guilt around our sexuality. And okay, so getting back
That
to
makes sense though. Because I've never
totally.
been
So
able to figure out why parents have always said, I can't figure out why anybody can see because my parents always said, well, if you masturbate, you lose your vision. There should be a lot of blind people by now. Just saying.
I'm just saying, the Kellogg's, you
It's
know,
bad.
Kellogg's cornflakes. Do you know Kellogg's
Oh, yeah,
cornflakes?
I do. Yes.
He started in, I can't remember the year, he started an anti-masturbation campaign. And he made the cornflakes because he saw that when we eat meat, we get more sexually attracted to each other. So meat has
Really?
it's really so. You have more energy towards sex then. Any case, so he was an anti-masturbation campaign. He didn't like the idea of sex, so he started that campaign because of that reason. And then the one thing people can't control is obviously our sexuality. Well, they try to control it by not educating us that it's just for procreation. So
True.
to get back to, what was your question again? Did I answer your question? I
Yeah,
really got off
yeah,
the
you did. For
bandwagon.
about like what the tantric sex is, and then
Okay, yeah.
you
And it's not
actually
even that.
answered.
We get shamed a lot of stages in our life, and what happens is a part of, if you believe in a soul, a part of us, let's say us, gets cut off, and then we create a false self of us just in order to belong in society, and then we fake it.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
That's
then we
probably where they get that phrase that fake it till you make it. I don't
yeah.
like that phrase at all.
No, me
That's
too.
that's like the worst thing you can tell yourself, because then it's one, it doesn't work with the subconscious mind to keep saying, oh, just fake it till you make it, because then it's constantly thinking that you're faking something, because it has no concept of reality, has no concept of time or fantasy, has no concept of anything. So
And
yeah.
that's where your shadow selves, if you're working in that line of industry, your dark self and your shadow self comes into play, because then you start saying a white lie because you remember that at a young age that wasn't appropriate.
That would make sense, because like I said earlier, that's where I heard like people that masturbate, they go blind. Well, that's not true at all, obviously, but that would be like a
Imagine,
white lie that parents would tell kids
imagine
if they
the
caught
imprint
them.
on that client or that person's brain already, just for that.
Yeah, I just got to think, that could affect vision in general, though, because if a child is told that between that conception to 8 years old, they're already a sponge. They're going to pick up that information, and then they're going to constantly think that,
And
okay, well, if I
and
do that.
some people are more
Wow.
imagination, visionary orientated,
Mm-hmm.
so it can have effect on that as well. So they're too afraid. Their nervous system say they're not allowed to see. So that now their nervous system says, "Oh no, you're gonna be blind." That's like fear imprinting in the making.
Yeah, it is. I just probably figured out some of my vision problem now. I thought it was just like because of the well, I know a lot of it had to do with medication, but no, now I'm seriously thinking of that, because that's actually one of the things I got to think, and I'm like, why do I have vision problems? I know medication was one part, but like before that, I'm like, where did it come from? So now
You know, and then
you're making me think about that.
and then some people can't see, right? There's just
That's
some
true.
people
It's
are more
unfortunate.
feeling. I'm like that.
Mhm.
I always said I can't see, but I can see if I give myself the credit. I can see, but I don't always see on
True.
cue.
True.
But we don't give ourselves the credit for that. So it's about learning yourself again, and that is the joy of sexuality. You must get curious again, not just, oh, we're going to orgasm, this is how it's going to work.
True. That's true.
Stop, throw the script out, get irritated with each other, shout at each other, well, in a healthy way.
True.
Control your anger.
True. So then how is the tantra sex different than our typical thoughts for like what sex is? because I know you talked a little bit about like the porn industry, how that's played a major, it's a major dysfunction that people even have that to begin with that follow that stuff. But because I know like that leads to erectile dysfunction. I know that that's where that comes from. It leads to a lot of horrible things that porn industry alone does. So then, how does that affect like the tantra sex aspect of it? For like what our
So
typical thoughts are.
what I would like to say is I don't want to shame the porn industry. There's other aspects
No.
but I just want to quickly say to you, there's
Mm-hmm.
other aspects to that as well. It's very male orientated. There is a lot of producers now coming out that's female orientated. So they show really what it's about, not just what they think it's about. And then for a person that can't orgasm for the first time, they need this erotic side. They need this to understand this imprint. I personally, I'm very, what I put in to my vehicle, I get caught up. So if I can see a slight image, I get caught up. Then I go into my mind. So hear me very clearly. So for a person starting out, I would, for a female, not a male. For them,
True.
I would recommend the healthy, female sexuality, erotic reading, stuff like that, to get her in her erotic side. Or 50 Shades of Grey, that's more like to get into that stuff. So that's the first thing. So not shaming that side, because we live in a very paradoxical universe. So our needs constantly change. So what we think is good for us today is not good for us tomorrow. So we mustn't put a cap on forever. That's doomed. So, but saying that is, I can't do visionary because I get caught up, and that's where all the fantasies collides. Where people have is they don't speak about it. They think it's in their head. So they need to talk about that. Coming back to your tantra sex and regular sex, these are all aspects what we just mentioned. Regular sex is it's all the mind saying to the body what to do, and it's not our body communicating with our minds what it's. So for instance, if it's a no, it's communicating that to your partner. And like I said, it's constantly changing. 5 seconds ago or 5 minutes ago, just doing something else, changing the position or just going to a massage gently. And then later on, you get aroused from the whole sensations itself. But it doesn't mean that you have to stop. Or maybe your body wants to stop for you to feel safe. So what can happen is your husband or your partner or whatever needs to give you what your nerve system requires and not what your brain thinks that you're going to. So regular sex is focused regards to orgasm and a goal. That is regular sex, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And getting towards a goal, where tantra sex is including everything in your bodily emotions, considering your emotions, considering you can say your thoughts, because that's where fantasy plays a huge thing.
True.
So, and then also considering your emotions. That's huge. It's not detaching from your emotions, because what can happen is all of a sudden my partner can play with me, let's say on massaging me on my vaginal aspects of the vulva. They call it yoni in tantra. Yoni, they call it, and they call the penis. They call the ligam. Okay, very nice words. I don't know. I'm like penis and pussy. Okay, but in any case, okay. I just feel that's more my thing. But what happens is if you start doing that and massaging, there's a lot of stuff, trauma healing that goes with it, because you can feel a lot of stuff. And we are still attached to that. Our identity is into this emotions. So as soon as we start going into that and playing in that aspect of safety, where we create that this is welcome and give it love and attention, you would be having orgasms like sadness. You would be having a joygasm. You would be having an angergasm. But that's if you're not attached to your emotions, and you can allow that to be fully into your body and be expressed. Where I don't know if that
Awesome.
happens that doesn't happen in regular sex. The only anger I had was
Mm-mm.
the anger in my head, and I want to hit my husband.
True. Just
Yeah.
saying. I don't know if yours is like mine, but I'm like, just clean a little bit more. It's like, seriously? The kids had toothpaste all over the bathroom floor last night. I'm like, I come home, I'm like, I am not cleaning this. This is not my circus. I wasn't here.
I'm not
I
going
told
to even
you that
ask
you
what
just
happened
you
there.
know.
Yeah. So it's. I hope I answered your question. Regular sex and tantra sex. It's more acceptance of
Yep.
everything, of your whole humanness.
Yeah, and I like that concept better because it definitely sounds like um it's more like that beneficial for both people. Because like
Mm.
in any relationship, like everything that I've learned too is that it's more beneficial before you get married, even before you start dating. They really need to teach us in schools, but they won't, is how we function by ourselves, like our own thoughts,
And
listening to
and
our own
and
body.
and remember, a kid can self-soothe.
True. And us as adults, we're like, we self soothe. Yep. Pick up the alcohol, pick up the drugs, pick up something
Exactly, because
else.
we
Pop a
don't know.
damn pill from the doctor. Yeah. Just
But
saying.
we disconnect from that because we can do that.
Yeah, we definitely can. And that's why it's like I wanted to have you on the show myself, even because I'm like, yes, this is something that people need to know, that there's another avenue of, okay, I need to express this somehow, because you have to have your emotions leave your body. Because that's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, your emotions are not meant to scare you, to hurt you. They're just there. It's no different than having to urinate or poop. It's got to come out because, believe it or not, if you don't do either one within 12 hours, there's problems that start to exist within your body if you don't do urination or poop. It starts causing problems. That's toxicity. Your emotions are the exact same way. So this makes sense to be able to have this in a tantra way, for yourself, but then to express it to your husband. You know, that makes a lot more sense. And I know you mostly work. Well, you mostly have men that you've helped. So yeah, that would make sense though, so that the men can really understand how us women operate. We're like,
And
I like
and
what you
the
said about the
biggest thing,
oven.
by men is we taught in society that we can't show sadness. That's the biggest thing for men, and that's
And
a
that's
load
the
of
most
bullshit,
detrimental.
right? Um,
Yeah,
and for them, even men need to sound in. For women, it's a big thing, but for men, it's even bigger for them to sound, to make the expressions of their animal nature, because they can be
true.
vulnerable. Because the wife can say, "What the fuck are you doing?" the,
True.
she can damp the whole thing. So that's where it really needs to be a space to create all, even sounds, even, I'm not saying farting,
True.
but that
That's
even
it's
as well.
true.
But it's all we are as humans.
Yeah,
But that is also where, in all aspects, we need to look after ourselves, because if we don't see the worth in ourselves, we can't expect our sexual partner to think that that you're a sex goddess if you don't think that yourself.
that's true. When you said
Mm.
that, I just got like an instant reminder of how I used to be before I met my husband, which was, um, I'm a sex goddess, get on your knees and pray.
Okay.
I had a keychain of like 10 different things about men. We won't go there. We'll just put it this way. Thank God for my husband to help me out of that time of my life. I was messed up. I used to be very sexist. I got that from growing up, but that's okay. Totally got to think of this. What is beneficial about tantric sex that most people may be unaware of?
Am I supposed to say this now? Beneficially? Is that the
Yes.
question?
Yeah,
Okay.
like what's the benefit of tantric sex versus regular sex that we know of?
Well, there was no, except for a husband, there is the ejaculation. He gets released, but regular sex was downright fucking boring to me. It had no benefits. I was just want to hit my husband, and I wanted to avoid it. I didn't want to do that. So regular
No.
sex is not an option for me. That's why
No, that makes sense though.
So coming back to Tantra sex and
Mhm.
bringing all aspects of yourself is nourishing, it's satisfying, it's healing, it's inspiring, it's got confidence. What else? It's where you connect to source.
That makes sense. That makes a
So
lot of sense.
why would you want regular sex? Okay, let's say for instance, if you want a quickie there, I'm not
True.
saying that is not allowed. You don't have you be all spiritual all the time. I'm not saying that.
True.
But you can create silliness in that playfulness as well. But then there needs to be an intention for the whole thing itself, because that is, there's no turning back if you feel the like, for instance, my husband said to me the one day when he had like a full body orgasm, and men doesn't know that is not the same as ejaculation. It's two of the it's not the same. It's two different things. Okay, so it doesn't have ejaculation. Great, full body orgasm. You're not ejaculating. You're using your sexual energy. Okay, so in regards to that, when he was in this full body orgasm, and always what we do after sex is we speak to each other, we communicate. What was his fears? What did he desire? What did he expect? Because that's where you grow to understand what's going on after. You're not just guessing. So after this, when he had this experience, and it doesn't always happen, we're not goal orientated to the folks. So what happened is, he said after the full body orgasm, he said, man, if people just knew how this felt, they would just not just go for the ejaculation, because this was like, he said, out of this world experience. Like, I'm not sure why would people go for ejaculation. So he's like keeping his sperm to get that sensation again. Well, that's still heading for a goal. So just be careful.
True.
Because the universe is very bad. You must surrender, but surrender to the goal as well.
True. Yeah, I can see that part of it. So then, how often should a person use the tantra sex versus like the regular sex that we know of?
Well, you can use the regular sex with tantra sex. So it's just in. So what happens is you make sex a meditation. That's basically what you're doing. You're going to have to be conscious of everything, every thought, every feeling, constantly. So that takes a level
during
of
tantra.
During regular sex, make regular
put
tantra. So tantra. Let me quickly explain to you. They have breathing techniques. It's breath work.
Okay.
It's meditation, and it's what's that else? What am I forgetting? So it's applying those aspects and your awareness and your consciousness to everything that's alive. So if you're gonna do regular sex unconsciously, then you're doing regular sex. So if you tantra, still do sex, but have consciousness and awareness to all your thoughts and emotions. That's going to amplify the whole experience. So to give you an
Okay, now I
idea,
got it.
yeah. So to give you an idea is, if people ask me how many times must I have sex, I wanna really throw a bucket at their face, because what you must understand is you're listening to your body. Where regular sex, you're not. You're just
Okay,
fucking for
that
the
makes
sake of
sense,
sex.
that concept.
So
Okay, now I
coming
got it.
back to Tantra sex is, you could have, and I'm always scared to give people a number, because then their minds go, oh, she said this.
True.
No. I said nothing. I said listen to your body and have
Yes.
sex according to that. So plan dates where you see each other, but whatever happens in that moment, you need to accept it. And that is even a
True.
no. That's even a no from you. And it's even a no from your partner. And that's where you need to cultivate and see, what is it you can allow in that moment. Can we maybe just massage each other? And okay, we're not heading towards a goal. This is easier said than done. It sounds very
I was
easy.
gonna say, especially the massage, that always leads to 9 months later, doctor just saying delivery. I know I'm not the only. I know I'm not the only person. That's why I'm like, maybe I need to start paying somebody else maybe I need to start paying somebody for my massage, just so I don't end up with that problem 9 months later. Just saying, not saying that children are a problem. I'm just saying, because I do love my children a lot. I'm just saying, I know that most women would agree, if they would pay somebody else, a professional, to do their massage, they won't have that 9 months later where they got to go to the doctor for
Yeah.
delivery.
Yeah. You could do it. And remember, if you go, there's different needs towards Tantra. But if you go for yoni massages, where they release ingrained patterning, trauma patterns. So instead of you wanting to use your husband as a punching bag to get all the released trauma of sexual abuse, you can use
True.
someone. Yeah, you can go to somebody specialized in that, but just make sure it's somebody with integrity, because
That's huge,
that's
because
huge.
I know when we were speaking earlier, I know that was my biggest thing, is like, that's, since I've entered into the healing world, almost 4 years ago here now, I have learned that there's more fakes out there and more people that don't have the integrity, that just, I'm like, you have to watch. And it's not just on the hypnosis end either, because yes, you do have to watch there very closely, because I've seen a few, but it's like, you have to watch extremely carefully who you trust yourself with, and who you allow into your own energy field, who you allow in, because you don't want to have just everybody,
And
and
you do not want to re-traumatize yourself.
no, and that's like the biggest thing, is like, you don't want to do that. You want to get away from it. So it's like, why would you keep talking about the problem? Because that's attracting more of the problem to you. That's why I like this tantra idea, because that is one way to release your emotions in a healthy, positive way. Instead of
And
having to do just other things that we typically know.
and myself and my partner,
Mhm.
is I wanted to go to a trained specialist, because I wanted to get to the point where I'm okay now. I don't struggle with this whole thing. So I did consider somebody that was trained to massage me and to allow these points to get out of my body. And I just didn't feel safe. I was for, and that is okay. And just to where you are at, to understand that and your needs. And yeah, I said to my husband, I'm very sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to get to this point that I can get over it. And that's where you need to really trust your intuition and your,
True.
well, you need, if something's telling you it's not safe, there's a reason why. So just go
Very
into
true.
that, and there's no rush. That's what healing. There's no rush and there's no forcing. So as soon as there's a block, understand why it's causing a block, and build something structured enough to understand the block, so it doesn't fall apart. So
Yeah, and that would make sense because you do have to watch, like I said, and like you've been saying, is you've got to watch like who helps. You've got to trust your own intuition. You got to trust yourself. That's why I'm like, people like even with test anxiety is the first answer is always right. You always go with the first answer because like when you're looking at a test, it's the exact same concept. You're looking at a test, well, they give you like 4 different multiple choice questions, or they give you a true and false, and you're like, well, the first one may be true, but then you're like, well, maybe it wasn't true. Like you're like second guessing yourself, and it's like, no, don't do that. The first one is always right. So I'm glad that you said that because
But I just want to quickly say to
trust it.
regards to that,
Yeah.
when I trusted, I didn't go for the person, and I had my husband helping me, and we grow. What happened is we got closer by each other, and he understood what was happening to me. So what happens is during sex, say for instance, I get an emotional flashback, but my flashback doesn't come in my mind; it comes as a
Oh,
reaction.
true. Yes, it
So it comes
does.
out. So then I want to attack or just get him off me all of a sudden. And then I think it's disgusting. I get those flashbacks. So what happens is he knows already the patterns that it's not always, but it comes up, and he knows how to create the safety for that needs to be done. Where in the past we would have fought with each other and saying, "You're fucking this up," and "Look what we're doing," and he would take it personal. There's something wrong with him as a lover.
Yeah.
So that needs to be said as well, because we emotionally mature, but we actually don't in society, because we are a 4-year-old in a 50 years old body, and we throw this around in sex. So yeah.
That would make sense. I tried to tell that to a social worker that went to school for mental health so she could treat people for mental health issues. And I'm like, she's like, there's no way that I'm 4 years old in an adult body. I'm like, you don't understand the subconscious mind, lady. Like, I'm just saying, they don't understand the subconscious mind. That's what's wrong with traditional therapy. They have no concept of the subconscious mind. Like, that's where the healing part is beneficial, though, because when you break through that part of where your mind and your body got stuck, when you break through it, that's when the healing, you're like, okay, now I'm not that age anymore.
You probably know this. I think it's 95 or 90% is everything on auto subconscious. We're running on those
95% is. Yeah.
That's
a lot of people are constantly in hypnosis.
Totally.
I'm like, why do you think you lose time when you're on Facebook? Why do you think you're losing time when you're driving? Why do you think this happens? It's because you're constantly in hypnosis. Why do you think you go buy Tide laundry soap? They hypnotize you into buying it.
And as soon as you're out of that patterns, have you seen time becomes freeing, and you're like, hang on, how did I get here? You're like, it gets so,
oh my god, the time management. Yes, the time management part. You're like, oh my god, I can get 1,000 more things done than what I used to. That part alone has been such a gift, because it's like, oh my god, I can fly through stuff that I used to not be able to.
Because that's the biggest thing for people, is to consider tantra sex. It takes 4 hours. If at the beginning, for regular sex, it's like, no, 15 minutes. Are you insane? I'm not going to spend 4 hours with my partner. Are you insane? What are we going to do for 4 hours? Are you insane? What? Really?
I can think of a lot of things to do, because I'm like,
that is the first concept to people. What? No, that's way too long. It's that time thing. You think there's no time? Really?
But
you want to get this person intimately fucked, so why don't you make time?
True. That is very true. But like when you got a lot of kids like I do, you're like, you're lucky if you get 10 minutes. I'm just saying, some days. But I suppose that's why a friend of mine also said that's why you date your partner once a week. You go on a date with them.
And not just that, a lot of I also have kids, and a lot of those concepts, while they're busy and we are there, a lot of, okay, there's a give or take. We do lock the things, but we open to sexuality. So we educate our positive sex. So myself and my partner told this. So if if it needs to be, so for instance, if he's going to learn something, I want him to learn it in my own home. So if
True.
I'm going to be scared of me and daddy is just playing here with the pillows or whatever, if we're going to make that fear about that, we are lying in our relationship. We are lying in our
True.
mommy daddy. So to us, he calls it sexy time. So to the kids knows, mommy daddy going to have sexy time. So there's a whole concept how open you are to your children. I'm not saying that it gets out of hand. I'm not saying that, but there's a level of, it's your values at the end of the day that needs to. But to me, it's I don't want to hide stuff to my kids. I'm not saying I'm experiencing everything to them. I'm not saying that, but I
No.
want them to feel safe, where I can be safe to say such things as well.
And that would make sense, because I know, like, that's one of the things that I've never understood. Why on God's green earth, why would parents tell their kids their body parts, call them different names? It's like, why would you call them, all these other names other than what they truly are? Because
Or
my biggest thing is, one, the parent is not thinking about if something sexually happens to their child, like sexual abuse, they're going to call it by something else. And it's like, what the hell are you doing to your child? You
I
are basically allowing whatever to happen, because you're not teaching them the proper names. That's the
and,
danger part of not teaching them proper names. So my kids
and
all know their proper names.
I have a very close to home experience of what you just mentioned, but it's not my story to tell, but I'll just say to you exactly that. I always told my children for what the experience is, what that is, don't call it by names. And that person, what happened in that experience, something happened to the person, they knew exactly this is what she was talking about. So it wasn't I'm touching my cookie and it's actually my pussy. So
True.
you say it as it is, how hard it may seem. And sometimes you'll see the ugly conversations is actually a reflection of what you haven't dealt with. So you can't even
True.
give them sexual advice because you're still there hanging.
That's true, because like there's stuff that comes up, like I'll even say, like, for myself, like my kids, like they're I got one that's 3 and one that's 2. Well, my parents divorced when I was 3. So I see those patterns in myself coming out through my kids until I caught it. And I'm like, okay, that explains why I want to divorce my husband. It has nothing to do with him. It has nothing to do with my kids. It has everything to do with me. And that moment, I didn't process when I was 3 why my dad left and why my mom was with me all the time. I couldn't process that as a child. But then as an adult, I can go back through the healing the inner child work with the hypnosis and go back
And
and say,
remember
okay,
that
but it was
you were
okay. It wasn't me.
you were feeling there. So this
Yes.
feeling is coming up. Now you're ready to process it.
Yeah. And that was the beauty part of it, because once I caught it, I became aware of it. Then I'm like, okay, so now I know what it is and I'm aware of it. So I'm able to work on it, heal it, release it, let it go. And now it doesn't bother me, but it used to, until I
Yep.
finally figured that out. So then, what's the best way for someone to get started with tantric sex? Because I know you are one of the speakers that's for the Women's Summit that's coming up for February 23rd through the 25th of 2022. What would a person want to, or how would a person get started with the tantra sex part of it?
So I would say if there's a lot of avenues to start, but let's just say Tantra is individually, first of all. So it's cultivating time for yourself. So you can't give from a cup that is not full. So
True.
you need to spend time with yourself. You need to slow down, to a mommy. That sounds impossible, but so what I would let's say, for instance, give yourself massage, give yourself the love you need. So for instance, if you have to get started, I would say for a female, pussy owners, that start with a breast massage. So what happens is your palms of your hands are connected to your heart. So start with so there's opposite directions what you can go, but I'm just going to explain for the podcast sake, is give yourself a massage, and your breast is linked to full body orgasms. So that is very good to cultivate. So give yourself a massage. I would start with that first of all for yourself, and then look at yourself in the mirror, explore yourself, take a camera, take a phone, open your legs, get to know yourself. No, not let your partner get to know. Get yourself. Get yourself to know yourself. Yeah?
True.
You're gonna have a lot of judgment. Good luck with that one.
True.
Okay, then you
Well,
see me.
I was thinking too, like from the cancer side of it, that would also help yourself catching cancer, or that's why we do breast exams, because on yourself, because then you're catching that.
But don't, if you have cancer, don't do that. Don't do the breast massage, because it can multiply it.
I did not know that part. I just knew like you have to do the self checks like once a month for the breast part.
Yeah, so if you have any weird stuff growing in your breast, and so don't do it.
I'll have to
just
not
get
do
that
that
checked.
then.
Just get. Do you have cancer?
No, I don't, but I have like the signs for it, because I've got some of the stuff that's like a precursor for it. I'm not going to put it out there. I'm just like, no, I'm saying.
It can actually be logs. So you fire, you're putting logs on the fire. So rather get that checked out. So, but this is for somebody with not a disease. So in terms of that, you can just explore your body with just looking at yourself in the mirror and touching yourself. So, and then in regards to males becoming a tantra, where would we start? Coming back to no ejaculation, but that's huge. That's a huge one. Let's start with a beginner one. Honoring your penis. So giving it a name, not just forcing an outcome on it, and giving it a massage and honoring it. I would say the same to the lady as well. The one, not the breast one, but I would say
so
that is the
us
first.
Women can name it.
No, men must name it. They feel very awkward. I must say, my clients like, what? You're calling my penis something? I'm like, yes. And then you have to connect it with all your body, your heart. And did you know the way to a man's heart, they say stomach, falls, it's their penis. So if you want them to be in their heart, if you want them to be in their heart, the penis brings you in the heart immediately. And there's another fact. I'll give you another fact. The penis is the plus and the vagina is the minus. So all the chakras moving upwards is the opposite. And how interesting, whoever created us to make that, he knew we were going to be entertained for hours.
Oh my God, this is absolutely amazing. One day I know how to help I know how to do more of that. We already know how to have kids, like obviously, because we've got so many. But I'm just saying, like, this is like more than what I thought. This actually makes me want to go on a date with my husband now. I'm just saying, because now I'm like thinking of that part of it, because I seriously thought the way to his heart was through his stomach, because of the food, like you feed him. I don't know.
Just go more low and see what results you get.
I'll have to. And I was gonna say that I'm sorry. Like I was gonna say that I'm sorry. Like this is TMI for anybody who's listening or watching. But it's also one of those, I'm not sorry, because why should we have to apologize for something we all do, especially when we get older? We're all going to do it. It's better to talk about it instead of learning from high school.
It's so funny. It's so funny you say it at the end of the podcast.
Well, true, but I'm just saying that it's like it's just that's why I'm just like
halfway, half 10 minutes in, they're like, "What the hell is all these people talking about?"
True, I probably should have said it in the beginning, but that's okay. That's why we're at the end of it, and that's why if you want to know more, you want to be able to connect with Lynn-dee. What is the best way for our audience to get a hold of you? Because I'm sure they're going to want to know more.
It's Wild at Heart by Lynn-dee. They can get me there. And then obviously I'm coming up for that nice summit that you're preparing. So make sure you get a ticket or whatever you're planning. Make sure you get in that deal. So yeah, thank you so much.
The summit, I'm really looking forward to having you on there, especially because it is truly a women's empowerment summit, and that again is February 23rd through the 25th of 2022, and it's going to be on not so much like on Facebook, but it's going to be a Facebook group with just having a bunch of women get together and really empower themselves and help them through different avenues of life, which is why I'm like, thank you, Jesus, that I found Lynn-dee, because person that can help us release another way of allowing the emotions just to be themselves. So thank you so much, Lynn-dee. I've really appreciated having you on here and everything and your time.
Thank you so
for
much.
Our listeners too.
Yeah, for getting so far on the podcast to the end.
True. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, either through listening or through viewing. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks.